at the board real quick first, the sentence that I wrote. Remember, we just are starting this talking about changing our, not using essential questions. Where we ask a question, now we're moving to saying the things that we can do. So let's look at our statement up there. And Isabel, would you read it for us? It's on the board, not up here on this screen, up here on the board.
I can locate and
Label.
label open words and
Classifying.
classifying sentences.
Okay, so at the end of this lesson, and we've done it a little bit earlier because we started a little bit with helping verbs, but at the end of the day, at the end of the lesson here, you are going to be able to locate and label those helping verbs when we classify sentences. Now, we're using that for classifying sentences today, but you should be able to do it anytime you're doing something in a grammar book, or if you're doing your CRCT test, for example, or you're doing homework. At this point, you should be familiar enough with those helping verbs that you can locate them. And sometimes you'll be asked to label them, sometimes you'll just be asked to write the helping verb or put the HV above it. Just depends on what assignment you're doing at that time. All right, so we're going to start out and we're going to practice again our jingle with helping verbs. So if you will look at the board.
These 20 helping verbs will be on my test. I gotta remember them so I can do my test. I'll start out with 8 and finish with 15.
Just call me a lean verb machine. There are the 8 B verbs that are easy as can be.
All right, ready?
And is, are, was, and were. And is, are, was, and were. And is, are, was, and were. Beat, being, and been. All together now the 8 B verbs. And is, are, was, and were. Beat, being, and been. And is, are, was, and were. Beat, being, and been. And is, are, was, and were. Beat, being, and been.
There are 20 helping verbs and I've recited 8. That leaves 15 more that I must relate. Knowing all these verbs will save my grade.
The Mealy word machine is here to stay. Has, have, and had, do, does, and did. Has, had, and had, do, does, and did. Like, must, and make. Like, must, and make. Can and could, would, and should. Can and could, would, and should. Shall and will, shall and will. Has, have, and had, do, does, and did. Might, must, and may. Can and could, would, and should. Shall and will. In record time, I did this drill. I'm the mean verb machine. Still.
Good job, guys. Helping verb, remember, helps the main verb. And our main verb is the action of the sentence. That's our action word. All right? An auxiliary verb, and sometimes that's what we call a helping verb, might be a term that you'll see. So you just need to remember that those mean the same thing. And then the verb phrase is what we call it when we add that helping verb. Because normally we just have a verb in a sentence. So we just call that our verb. But when we add a helping verb, now we have a whole phrase. Just like when we have a prepositional phrase, we have the preposition and the object of the preposition. We call that a prepositional phrase. So when we have a verb and a helping verb, we're going to call that a verb phrase. Okay, so when we classify, we're going to add that to our classifying now. So for example, if we go back and we're classifying, then we get to that point and we say, is helping verb, then we're going to say our whole verb phrase. We're going to say, is jogging, verb phrase. Okay, so we're going to add that to our list. Now, we're going to classify our sentences. So let's do our first sentence. Zach? Okay, we've picked already. All right, ready? All right, all together, we're going to read the sentence. Ready?
During the winter, we ski on weekends.
Who?
Skis on weekends. We. Subject noun.
Subject, pronoun. What is being
Said about we ski verb. On preposition, on what, weekends
inverted. Underline the complete subject once and the complete predicate twice. All right, now somebody raise their hand and tell me why we have to underline this sentence. Brett?
Because it's an inverted.
Okay, what makes it inverted? What makes it different than another sentence? Do you remember? Karen?
It starts with a prepositional phrase.
Okay, what? So if it starts with a prepositional phrase, why is that still inverted? Yes, you're right, it does. And that makes it inverted, but there's a reason why. Jessel?
Part of the predicate.
It's now part of the predicate, or it is part of the predicate. Remember, we can change the order of our words around in the sentence, but during the winter still goes with the predicate part of the sentence. So in order to show that, we're going to underline it so we know that when we underline the subject, it's always once, the predicate is twice. So that tells us that during the winter is part of the predicate part of that sentence. Very good, James, and you remember to say that. Good job. All right, Peyton? Okay, ready? My
friend and I have been talking about our camping trip for days. Who's been talking about our camping trip for days? Friend and I. Sometimes subject noun, compound subject pronoun, and conjunction. What is being said about friend and I? Friend and I have been talking about verb. Been, helping verb. Have, helping verb. Have been talking, verb phrase. About, preposition. About what? Trip. Object of the preposition. What kind of trip? Camping. Adjective. Whose trip? Our. Possessive pronoun adjective. For preposition. For what? Days. Object of the preposition. Whose friend? My. Possessive pronoun adjective. Subject noun verb pattern 1. Check for prepositional phrases. About camping trip prepositional phrase. 4 days prepositional phrase. Period statement declarative sentence. Go back to the verb. Divide the complete subject from the complete predicate.
Is this sentence in a natural or inverted order? Natural, no change. So remember, we don't have to do anything. Brett, question?
The ADJ kind of looks like HDJ.
It does look a little different, but that's okay because we know what it is. We know it's an adjective. Okay? All right, and then our last sentence. Now, this is new. Okay. This is new. Remember, we haven't had interrogative sentences that we've classified before. What does that interrogative sentence start with? What kind of word? James?
It starts with a it.
What is does?
It's
And Shurley helped you out. It's a helping verb. All right? Now, remember, this is also another time when we have inverted order, because if it starts with a prepositional phrase, a helping verb, or an adverb, it's inverted because does go with the subject or the predicate part? The predicate part. So we have to underline that. So I just wanted to give you a heads up so as we classify. All right, ready all together.
Does Antonio work at the computer store with David? Who does work at the computer store with David? Antonio. Subject noun. What is being said about Antonio? Antonio does work.
Verb.
Does, helping verb. At, preposition. At what? Store. Object
Now, when she finishes that, I want you to look at that sentence and see where she divided it. Right here, in front of the verb. All right, and then in our other sentence, all right, however, in this sentence, we divided it in front of the helping verb. Why did we not divide the last sentence in front of the helping verb? Logan? All right, it's inverted. All right, and when we divide our sentence, all right, we're showing the difference between the complete subject and the complete predicate. What would happen, Caleb, if she drew the line right here? What happens to our sentence?
There would be no subject.
There's no subject, okay? Because remember our dividing line. When we underlined it, that's what showed us that this helping verb really belongs over here, okay? Kieran, question?
Wouldn't you say who worked with who instead of
Yes, we should. What Kieran's talking about, remember we've only had this one time. When we asked the question here, it should have been with whom David, okay? We've always been saying with what, but this was the first time we've seen a name here. Good job, Kieran, I'm glad you caught that. Brett?
You forgot to say helping phrase.
We did forget the helping verb phrase. Remember, that's something new, so we're going to forget some of those things every now and then, okay? But we'll try to remember it when we do it again. Okay, and Jessel, you can sit down. Okay, remember all of those, because they're difficult things to remember. So we're going to quickly review, and then we're going to do a little game, a little activity. And I want to show you again our different kinds of sentences. And the most basic one is our simple sentence, and we label that with an S. Okay, and I need your eyes up on the board so you can remember this. Then we looked at simple sentences with a compound subject, Roy and Wendy, so we had two people. We also looked at simple sentences with compound verbs, and we actually had a compound subject in one of our sentences today. All right, we've also looked with compound verbs, so Roy sang and danced, so two things that he did. And we talked about compound sentences where we take two complete sentences and put them together. And guys, this is important. Remember here, a compound sentence has to have a comma and a what?
Comma and conjunction.
Conjunction. Now, this could be and, it could be or, it could be but it has to have that comma and a conjunction. Now, there's one other way we can fix it. What was the other way? Who remembers? Not with a comma and a conjunction. Okay? Semicolon. Okay? So if you're going to choose CD as your choice, when we do our little activity, your sentence that you're looking at has to have a comma and a conjunction or a semicolon. Okay? Now, the hardest one are the complex sentences. And these are difficult because of that conjunction, but it's a subordinated conjunction this time. Remember, it's different. This after makes that sentence part here be dependent on the rest of the sentence. Remember, our complex sentence has a dependent clause and an independent clause. So when you see that in the middle here, but there's no comma, but that tells you that's a complex sentence. Now, remember, we can move after here. We can say after Roy sang, Wendy danced. At that point, we would have only a comma here. So if you have a sentence with only a comma and no conjunction, you know it's going to be a complex sentence. Okay? Then our final one is a fragment. And a fragment is just when you have only part of a sentence. Either you're missing the subject, you're missing the predicate, but you're missing some part of that sentence. You don't have a complete thought there. All right, so you're missing something. All right, I want you to go ahead and get your paddles ready. Is everybody going to get all of these correct? No. Not necessarily, but we'll talk about each one. If most of you get it right, then I know that you understand it. And you might miss one or two here, and that's okay, because this is just our practice. But remember, we're doing this so that when you get to your practice part in your book, you'll kind of think through some of the things that we're going to talk about and do as we do this, and that'll help you remember it. All right, so if the first one, and remember, just hold it up when I tell you to show your answer. All right, we say, after I've hiked for an hour in the hot sun, I want you to tell me what kind that is. So just put your label. show your answer. Okay, most everybody got those correct. All right, let me just mention quickly, you put your paddles down. If we take off this word right here, do I have a complete sentence? I hiked for an hour in the hot sun. Do I have a complete sentence? Yes. Remember when we add that conjunction right here, that makes that dependent on something else. So we would have to add something else on that sentence. Then we would have a complete sentence. So yes, this is a fragment.
Yay!
All right, our next sentence. Okay, show your answers. Okay. Looks like we're pretty okay with it. Have a couple. All right, this is a complex sentence. And guys, remember this is our key right here. That until makes that because now this is dependent on the rest of the sentence. Okay? The store was closed, we went home. Look at that carefully. Okay, show your answers. All right, good job. All right, now, I see a couple people that could, it is a compound sentence, but now listen, Brett, turn around please. I want you to listen for a minute. A couple people picked compound verb and a couple people put compound subject. There are two verbs in that sentence. There are two subjects in that sentence. The store was closed, we went home. That's your two subjects. Now, the reason we wouldn't label it as SCS or SCV is because it's actually two complete sentences put together, so it's compound. All right, so that's why we get, and this semicolon is your clue, okay? All right, ice melted and dripped along the edge of the road. Okay, show your answers. Okay, we have most of them are okay. We have a couple that put SCS. Now, look here. It should be an SCV.
Yes.
Look at the board real quick. Remember, this is your subject. Listen. Brett, turn around, please. Remember, this is your subject, and two things happened. It melted and dripped. So that's a compound verb. The baby was very sleepy, and she took a nap. Okay, show your answers. Okay, most of you looks like have it correct. All right. Remember on this one, you're looking at that comma and conjunction, so it is a compound sentence. Very good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip that one because we've already done this, but I do want to do the last two because one of these we haven't done that kind yet. My homemade kite crashed on the pond. Now look at that one very carefully. My homemade kite crashed on the pond. You have to give a choice. Think of the things that would have to be in it for it to be one of these. Okay, so think carefully. All right, show your answers. Okay, most of you got it. All right, it is just a sentence. Okay? It is a complete sentence. Some of you thought it was a fragment, but it does have a subject and a verb. It makes sense. It has an end mark. So yes, it is a simple sentence. You don't have and, you don't have commas, you don't have any of those conjunctions in there. All right, and then our last one. I listen to the radio as I drive to work. Okay, show your answers. Okay, we have quite a little variety on this one. We have a little bit more trouble with this one. Okay, a lot of you got it. It should be a sentence. All right, look. Eyes up here. Okay, when I add as I drive to work, now that is dependent on this part of the sentence, so it's a complex sentence. It doesn't have a comma. It can't be a compound sentence because there's no conjunction and comma there. It doesn't have and or but, okay? All right, you may very quietly put your paddles to the side. Go ahead and erase, clean those off. Okay, it should say classroom practice 32 at the top. Kristen? No, after we're done. It should say classroom practice 32 at the top. Now we're going to review a couple things quickly and then I'm going to let you get started. The first two you're classifying. Now this is an interrogative. Remember that's our new one. So are you going to underline this sentence? Will you underline it after you classify it?
Yes.
Yes, because it's an inverted order, because it starts with that helping verb. All right, number 2, during the night. What is that? It's inverted sentence because this is a prepositional phrase at the beginning. So yes, you will classify it and then you'll have to underline it. Okay? Now, look at our table. You're going to list the nouns used. Remember, you're only using sentence 1. So don't try to use both sentences. You're only going to look at sentence 1, and you're going to find the 2 nouns. You list those here. Now, what is the job? How do you find the job for that word? James?
When you finish classifying it, you see what letter you labeled it, and then you write it.
Okay, yes. So after you classify up here, whatever you labeled it at the top. So one is going to be a subject noun, and one is going to be probably a what? What are our 2 kinds of nouns we've talked about? Kieran?
Preposition and not preposition. Object of the preposition.
Okay, so our nouns are going to either be labeled SN for the subject noun, and it has to have one of those, or a subject pronoun, but then it would be listed as a noun. Or it's going to be an OP, which is the object of the preposition. Those are our nouns. All right, so you're going to put those words here, and you're either going to have an SN or OP here. Then you're going to decide if those words are singular or plural, S or P, common or proper. So you're going to put a C or a P, and then tell me what the subject is and the predicate in that sentence. Okay? Now, we've been studying parts of speech since the beginning of school. And we've learned 7 of them so far. We still have 1 more that we haven't done. So pretty soon we're going to be looking at that last one. All right, so I want you to just write down those parts of speech. And remember, you only have to do the label. Okay? Now, let me ask a quick question. Is helping verb a part of speech?
No.
No. What is the part of speech that you would put? Karen? V for verb. It is a helping verb, that's what we label it as, but it's actually going to be the part of speech, it's the verb. Okay? Alright, then when you get to the bottom part, this is what we just studied and looked at. So I want you to go through. If you see an and or a comma, anything like that, I want you to circle those as you're looking at them. So that'll be a key for you as to what you're going to label it. They give you your choices up here, so make sure you look, and then you're going to just put those labels here. Any questions about what you're working on or what you're doing? All right, you can go ahead and get started. Okay, you don't have the pencil? You want your on this line? You'll have to, just wait a minute. Does somebody have one sharpened over the other sleeve?
No, I asked that.
You want one sharpened? you should have done some of this because it's grammar stuff. This is a preposition. Also, and is a preposition. Why don't you come down and do this part down here, and then I'll send something home to you that you can work on this. Okay, so just do this part for now. Most of you are starting to finish up, so I want you to listen carefully. If you are finished, then go ahead and we're going to go over this tomorrow to give everybody a chance to get it finished up. So put it quietly away. Take out your Caesar Chavez.